The Honourable Member for Coomera.
Mr Speaker, I rise to make a brief contribution to the Neighbourhood Disputes Resolution Bill. I'd like to focus my attention in reality on a particular area of the bill that I've been looking at, the interpretation, the meaning of fence. It talks about a fence as a structured ditch or embankment. And the word embankment's an interesting word. I in recent times have had some complaints come my way where a particular embankment between residential blocks have not satisfied the requirement for a retaining wall as far as council is concerned, so the council couldn't enforce the need for a retaining wall, which I believe needed to be at least a metre high. And you can imagine these situations where we've got a slight hill and house number one arrives and being built, and they've done a cut and fill to build their home, and then just below them somebody else comes along, buys a block of land, decides they need to do the same thing, and they do themselves a little cut and fill, and they start building their house. And what they've ended up with is something like a 3/4 metre high embankment between the two blocks of land. Now, you apply to council, if you're on the high side, you particularly want this retaining wall put into place so that you can tidy things up, and the reality is that the creation of the embankment was that of the block below, but the people in the block below say no, we don't need to put a retaining wall in at all, and so what we've got is this embankment situation. And the difficulty, of course, is that it's extremely hard to build a fence on an embankment, particularly when we talk about the height of a fence between two properties being a maximum of 1.8 metres. We might find a situation where if you've got a 3/4 or 900 high embankment that cuts between the two blocks, you know, part of the material has been washed away on the high side block, we'll call it, and so we've got this rather nasty embankment that is regarded, interestingly enough, in the meaning interpretations here as a fence in its own right, which is interesting, and I'd seek some explanation perhaps on that. But a very difficult situation. So if we have the owner on the low side talking about saying, no, I'm not going to put any retaining wall up, I'm not going to expend my money. The people on the high side have probably already done that on the other side of their block. But we have this situation where it's virtually impossible to build a fence down the length of the dividing boundary. So we've got this common boundary that can't be built on. We've got the people on the low side that aren't keen to do anything in relation to a retaining wall. So where do you put the fence? Where does it actually go? Well, okay, in the Act, in the bill, it does talk about being able to move the fence line if it's impracticable to construct on that boundary line. Well, which way do you go? Do you go on the low side? Do you build the fence on the low side? And if you do, and you've got a 900 high drop, you've got the low side. You build it on the low side. The people on the low side lose a slab of their land forevermore to the people that are on the high side. They can only build a fence 1.8 metres high. So from the high side, we've got 900 lift, so we're looking over a fence that's only 900 high on the high side and it's 1.8 metres on the low side. Or alternatively, do you go back up the embankment and build the fence on the high side and build a 1.8 metre fence, which for the people on the low side is now looking like a 2.7 metre fence because we've got this embankment. But more to the point, the people on the high side, who had nothing to do with the cut and fill of that particular area, is now in a situation where they've lost a big slab of their block of land. And this is a very common situation. In fact, I've had the actual situation that I've just described to you presented to me in a neighbourhood dispute, exactly what we're talking about here. So where do you find some balance? How do you come to an agreement when the council can't enforce because there isn't a metre of height, where one side or the other is going to lose a significant piece of their land because the the fence has to be moved one side or the other. Okay, we go off to QCAT, and I just wonder how QCAT would deal with something like that, given that the bill does not appear to be specific enough. And I suppose that's where I'm going with this example that I'm using, that there is a lack of being specific in the bill in relation to how the whole situation might be resolved. Therefore, in my humble opinion, it is still very much open to interpretation that the dispute would have still continued under this new bill, under this new legislation. The dispute that I've just described to you, that is a very real one. Imagine we've got massive growth in the Coomera electorate. We've got all sorts of lies of land. We've got all sorts of, undulations of land that is being developed. And these types of things are all over Coomera electorate and certainly all over southeast Queensland. So we'd still have the dispute, and the concern that I've got is how are we going to actually resolve this type of dispute, which is more and more common as we go along. I can only see ongoing disputes, as I say, and issues around this particular aspect of the bill. Thank you.